Week 14 was another one in DFS where there were a disappointing number of injuries, especially at quarterback. I think in like the first quarter, you had 3 separate guys who did not start playing at quarterback for their respective teams. And obviously, there's a lot of trickle down of that when it comes to DFS. We're going to break down the takeaways from that. We're going to talk about other role changes, some pretty interesting ones for this week, and take a look ahead to week 15 by diving into the salaries over on FanDuel.com. This is the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com. Joined here, as always, by Brendan Gdula. He is the senior managing editor of numberFire.com. Brandon, we are almost week 15. How you doing today?
I'm here.
Allegedly. Prove it.
Yeah, but so, I mean, we prepped for the recap show. I was warming up my voice before the show, doing my scales. The do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, T. Higgins that I do every single week. But unfortunately, I was lost in the warm-ups. So
yet you still ran a snap during the game.
Look, I'm making my comment, but now I'm going to watch from the sidelines. You can take it from here.
Yeah. It was really fun to be sitting in. I'm here at the FanDuel World Fantasy Football Championship at Marco Island, which is a great place to be. Fun event, but it was fun to know within 10 minutes that I didn't need to track my own lineups during the event. I could just close those tabs. Like, okay, I'm going to pay attention to other stuff right now. I'm going to go get some free paella or whatever and like hang out there instead of paying attention because it was toasty immediately. So that was disappointing. Your joke was also disappointing.
No,
and you should be ashamed of that.
Come on, I had the warm up. I had the T. Higgins and the
but there's trauma, Brandon.
But I was
trauma.
Warming up.
Also, and you were talking about getting prep for this podcast. It reminded me that I had to do WFFC last night. Immediately leave from like the boardroom to go prep for this podcast. I wanted to watch White Lotus before it got spoiled for me. So up until 1:30 doing that, recording other podcasts this morning. So you're like tapping into multiple areas of my psyche that I don't want to be reminded of right now. I'm going to ask you kindly to F off.
All right. Well, that's been my time for the week. As I said, my voice not quite feeling it anyway.
Good. See ya.
So
deuces. We're going to break down week 14. I suppose we'll let Brandon stick around, so I've talked this entire thing by myself, let you know key takeaways, and take a look ahead to the week 15 main slate as well. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. We, of course, are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, etc., etc. You can find us there just by searching for the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. And if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. With only a handful of Monday Night Football games remaining this season, FanDuel and Visa are coming together to make sure the excitement surrounding Monday nights is at an all-time high. Introducing Monday Night Perfect Picks presented by Visa, a free-to-play contest series on FanDuel that gives you a chance to win a share of $10,000 in cash prizes courtesy of Visa. Here's how it works. You'll be presented with 10 questions centered around on-field action for Monday night's NFL game. Fans who answer the most questions correctly will win their share of the $10,000 prize pool. It's that easy. The contest is now live. So at FanDuel.com/free/Visa Perfect Picks and make your picks before Monday night. That's FanDuel.com/free/contest/Visa Perfect Picks. No purchase necessary. Age and location restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See full terms at FanDuel.com. Visa and its financial institutions have not sponsored or offered this promotion in any way. Let's dig into week 14 and recap what went down. The headliner here for this week is another injury for the San Francisco 49ers. Deebo Samuel going down with what seems to be a high ankle sprain. Brock Purdy, though, wildly efficient once again in this game on his 21 dropbacks, 0.55 passing net expected points per dropback for Purdy in this game. Samuel still led the team, or tied George Kittle for the team lead with 5 targets, because they threw like 3 times in the entire second half. Brandon Ayuk did score, but he had just 3 targets. Christian McCaffrey, a lot of work for him. Not a lot of work, but a lot of A lot of output. 14 carries, 3 targets for $153 in terms of total yards. So a Debo injury is going to hurt this offense. And we downgrade them going from Garoppolo to Purdy as well, despite Purdy looking pretty good and being a fun story. At some point, you'd think that these compounding losses would add up to where we need to downgrade the rest of the offense, despite the bump in volume, but we haven't gotten there yet. So where are you on the 49ers with Purdy there, but Debo to miss time?
Yeah, I mean, eventually, like, the shoe's got to drop where the efficiency loss is just too great. The main issue with that is that Christian McCaffrey, again, he's just always played in like bad offenses, so it's not like the end of the world, I think, for McCaffrey. His very creative end zone catch, not just target, but downfield catch, really, really appealing. But I don't know if I'm ever going to have a lot of interest in like Brandon Ayuk tied to Brock Purdy, because Ayuk's salary already has been in the upper 6 range.
Right.
So I guess I'd be most interested in George Kittle. And I'm going to do this throughout the show. I know Jim doesn't care as much, but I'm trying to make sure that I know when teams play for week 15. This team I know is Thursday night against Seattle. So thankfully,
you were looking ahead to week 16. No, week 15 is fine. I get that. You were looking ahead to week 16 and I wanted to vomit. Thinking that far ahead, I can't.
Well, but it's a different conversation, because like if I knew this team was on the main slate, I'd be like, I don't have as much interest, but they're on Thursday. So like, to make it more actionable, we got to keep that stuff in mind. So I think that I'm still going to have just as much interest in Christian McCaffrey based on what he did this week. I think I will potentially maybe just not even move like Kittle and Ayuk. I don't think the volume upgrade will be enough.
Offset. They kind of offset.
I think it's kind of is a wash, because Debo's a really good player, and taking him off the field is going to clog things up. And I like Brandon Ayuk, but I don't really think he's like someone who's going to separate and just kind of like do things on his own. I think having Debo alongside him, having Kittle, McCaffrey beside him helps him out a lot. So I guess status quo here, because like kind of just everything offsets.
Weirdly, yeah, I think so. I think I agree with that too. Like we talked about this when we were talking about our player picks on Thursday. I was like, okay, like it feels bad to list a guy playing at the backup quarterback as a love because I had McCaffrey in there, but like the usage is so good right now. And like, I know 14 carries and 3 targets in this one is not huge, but they didn't have to do anything because they were up by 40. It felt like immediately they'd scored, I think 7 points in the second half and they won by 28. Like it's nuts how that game went. So I think if we get into a tighter script, which I think they will on Thursday against Seattle, I'd expect McCaffrey, you're probably putting, if you're like John Sheeran, a FanDuel Sportsbook setting a line, 80.5% snap rate for McCaffrey, maybe pretty juiced towards the over there. Like he's at 140 yards from scrimmage in all 3 games he's played in full snaps without Eli Mitchell for the 49ers. So it's tough to downgrade him too much despite the injuries.
10.2 yard ADOT for McCaffrey.
He gets a downfield target in 3 consecutive games as a running back. It's nuts.
Yeah. And while just the 68% snap rate, 83% of the routes.
Yeah. So they're using
and this team brought in Josh
using
Jones.
him in the areas you want him to be used. It's perfect.
Yeah. So honestly, I wish this game was on the main slate for a lot of reasons, because it'd be fun.
Yeah.
But one of those where like the usage was so good that it could have been, or not, the production was good, but like the usage could have been so much better.
Yeah.
So the salary probably not as high as it should be, basically, like one of those, because it could have been better if he was stretched out to a full game.
If we're doing name that salary for a single game slate, I'd say like 17.5. And I'd put my MVP happily there. It's one of those, like, especially because like Seattle got bullied on the ground yesterday by a worse rushing offense. So like Deontay Foreman, full respect to you, but not quite McCaffrey, although former teammates, but like, I think I agree with you where I think it's status quo where that might feel odd because I want to be wary of this offense, but I can't be with McCaffrey getting the work he's getting.
His salary is 17.5 for next week.
Maybe I should just do that instead of putting myself through T. Higgins torment. Okay, let's dive into other injuries from Week 14. Russell Wilson suffered a concussion and was ruled out for the game. Didn't look good. Brett Rippon came on in relief. We've seen Rippon this year against the Jets. Rippon did get a touchdown to Jerry Jeudy, but not sharp in this one. Russ played better than he has, but also I think the touchdowns are a bit misleading in terms of how well he was playing. Jeudy, though, 9 touchdowns.
Felt like it.
3 touchdowns on 9 targets. Greg Dulcich had 8. Jeudy also had a downfield target where he induced pass interference. Both guys had 2 deep targets. The Broncos did lose Mike Boone in this game, but Marlon Mack still ate into Latavius Murray's workload. I'm still out on Murray. I know he was popular yesterday. In the WFSC, I think he was 30%. And these people are smarter than me. I use James Cook. So I guess Latavius Murray popularity was surprising to me. And I feel like this game was a downgrade for him from my baseline, which is already pretty low, even with Mike Boone going down because Marlon Mack played well and ate in there. So I'm not in on Murray, but could you get to Jeudy or Dulcich if Wilson were to miss next week?
No, I mean, I was surprised that this team scored. What did they end up with? 28, was it?
Yeah.
Which was a season high for them because I've been on 23 watch with them. I just you need touchdowns, and Jerry Jeudy got there this week. I get that he had 3. But just 73 yards on the 9 targets. I like Jeudy. I think he's really good, which is not a hot take, but I think it's been a while.
It's becoming a hot take. People have soured on him. So.
Right. It's been so long that it feels like I'm really high on Jerry Jeudy. Now, Judy's salary was 65 this week. After a 3 touchdown game, it's going to spike up. I think either way, there's a quarterback downgrade because I don't anticipate that this team scores more than 23 points ever. I guess they get Arizona next week.
Their implied total is 18.5 at home against a bad defense.
You just can't get out over your skis there. And I feel like Judy's salary is going to be too high. If it was still at 65, I'd be interested, but it's got to be up at 7,000, right?
I would guess. I don't think that's terrible though. Oh no, is it higher?
74.
Okay.
Which was my fear. I was thinking 7,000 was bare minimum of how much it would jump.
Do you have a different read on Latavius than I do? Because I feel like people might be on him again next week.
I mean, you've been yelling at me on the recap show about bringing up Latavius for 3 weeks now. The thing that you could bank on with Latavius was he was playing elevated snaps consistently, and you don't find that very often at running back. So in week 12, he was at 83%, then 67% in week 13, which I know is trending down, but now 52% in week 14.
He was trending down with Mike Boone coming back, so there's an explanation for it. And the explanation was getting worse.
Yes. But what I'm saying is there was a running back is so bad that if you see a glimpse of an 86, even a 67% snap rate on a bad team, we consider James Cook. We both played James Cook in our head-to-head against one another.
I used him.
Right.
Were made.
Yeah. But
I'm the moron here. I accept that.
But we talk often about there's a difference between ambiguity in terms of projecting an increase and having seen something beforehand. I think with Latavius, seeing him play that 83% snap rate now this week, I know it went down to 67%, but if you said, okay, well, 67% of snaps in a game where the team has to do something offensively, against a team that doesn't really want to stop the rush, that has a lot of value to, some people where you can get quote unquote that Jim's going to freak out, but get a floor of production. But that floor, I think with Latavius is gone. So I had a different take on Latavius than you did, where I was more open to him, but I think that's right out the window at this point.
And what about Dulcich? I'm guessing he didn't get the same bump as Jeudy. If Dulcich were 55, would you go back in probably the backup quarterback?
Potentially only because he just is one of the few guys who gets downfield work. I believe he was second in air yards among all tight ends this week, trailing only Travis Kelce.
Who?
Like with that potential, his salary is 56.
It's fine.
Dulcich 92 air yards, Kelce had 101.
I feel like if we
only
have
four total had more than 65. So
yeah. I feel like if we had like a section on the podcast during the low section of like others to consider, I think he'd probably be in that bucket. Like he's viable, but don't really want to tie a lot of guys to Brett Rippon or Russell Wilson. Not really feeling that personally. Yeah. Just offense is not super desirable. Judy's a little bit high salary for me at that. Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. Sorry, earmuffs for people who use them this week, including me. I'm just going to hold my ears up while I'm saying this part. Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. I have headphones in. The earmuffs thing doesn't work. But they both suffered injuries to the Bengals. Boyd ruled out with a finger injury in the first half. He's expected to miss a week or two. That left them with no Higgins, no Boyd, no Hayden Hurst for almost the entire game. And what do you do then? You feed the ball to Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow did that. 15 targets for 119 yards and a touchdown. Samaje Perine was second on the team with 5 targets. Only Trenton Irwin had more than 35 yards other than Chase. In the 3 games that Higgins has left early, here are Chase's target totals. 16, 12, 15, a 37% share, and Boyd played in the first 2 of that split. I think Hurst did too. So how would a Bengals team without Higgins, Boyd, and Hurst change your view of both Jamar Burrow? Ooh, that'd be fun. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase.
Like Chase would enter cash game consideration even high salaries because it's impossible to see how he wouldn't get those elevated target numbers again. I think for Burrow though, he's really good. He's been rushing more. I don't know off the top what he did rushing wise this week. I know he got to 13 yards because I was almost bet over 14.5 for him. I don't know if he
finished with 10. I think he had some kneel downs.
Yeah. So I think Burrow is like unplayable if it's just Chase. This team doesn't have. I mean, if you take off T. Higgins, Hurst, Boyd, those guys. I mean, T. Higgins is great, but like Hurst and Boyd are not needle movers, but they keep you afloat.
Unplayable in any spot or unplayable against the Bucs in Week 15 specifically?
Yeah, like that's
okay.
And like, let's be frank. Do we think Joe Burrow is going to go? His salary is going to go down to like low 7,000s or like 7,400?
It's 8,000.
So like, I don't think that there's enough there personally.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, again, Chase. Like I know the salary is going to be up, but with that market share, like I played Justin Jefferson against you in our head-to-head this week, and that's very rare for us to do to get to one of those receivers. I think Chase is in that conversation if he's going to be locked into 12 plus targets.
He's like that's Cooper Kupp stuff. And for another like Cooper Kupp's a dynamic football player, so is Jamar Chase, obviously. If you're going to get 12 targets,
you got a carry too.
Yeah,
he's on the list for a guy who got a carry.
One carry is worth 16 targets to me. So 32 targets, 31 targets for Jamar Chase on Sunday. But he's 9,000. Like that's really affordable for the usage you're getting. And I think I want to reiterate what you were saying. Like that's rare for us to say because we prefer to spend up a running back versus receiver, but like that's targetable. Again, I mean, like the Bucs, that's not going to be a high scoring game. Most likely I'm a little bit higher on Burrow than you are, I think, because I respect the way this coaching staff has handled this year. If you give them a full week to prepare for not having Higgins and Boyd, I feel like Burrow can still be efficient enough. Now, it depends on the other quarterbacks in the slate. Like if we have Hurts, Mahomes, Allen, I know Allen's not in the slate, but like if we have like all those guys there and it's a lot of competition for Burrow, then I'm not as interested. But $8,000, I think he can still go off with just Jamar Chase personally. So I'm not going to I don't think I'm actively seeking him out, but I'm receptive, more receptive than you seem to be.
All right. I have like a bit of a comp here. Are you playing like Justin Herbert? Are you like eager to play Justin Herbert at 8,000 with like just one viable pass catcher?
Against the Bucs, I wouldn't be, but I feel like, the difference is Justin Herbert's ADOT's 5 and Joe Burrow's ADOT is like 95.
Okay. So you don't view them very similarly.
No,
so that was my question. That was like my roundabout way to get.
I have respect for, this is weird to say, given the perception of Zach Taylor, I have respect for one of these coaching staffs and not for the other. So I would actually be okay with going with Joe Burrow. Yeah. I would prefer Joe Burrow over Justin Herbert right now, even if we assume there's no Higgins.
Okay. Interesting.
I love Justin Herbert. I hate his coaching staff. That's what I'm trying to say.
I got you. Yeah. Okay. So Herbert's 83 next week against the Titans, hosting the Titans. You're more likely to play Joe Burrow at 8,000.
No, because we have Williams and Allen. It's a different situation than you gave me.
Right. Okay. So cool. Just checking. Just I did.
You can't change the criteria on the fly.
No, but I can, and I did.
No. Man, I actually should have kicked you out earlier. Okay, DJ Moore getting tested down on an ankle injury he suffered in week 14. We're going to talk about the Panthers in the philosophical section and talk about the potential implications of this there. Dontrell Hilliard was carted off on Sunday, and that coincided with the big game for Derrick Henry. At first glance, this probably doesn't seem that relevant, but like it is for Henry as a pass catcher because Hilliard had played around 35% of the snaps in the 2 games leading up to this one. Henry's snapper is on 55%. Week 14 specifically, Henry had a 76% snap rate, 17 carries, and 5 targets. The 5 targets specifically, that's huge. He was very good on the ground, as you saw during that game. The Jags have actually been pretty good against the rush overall this year. So that was, I think, encouraging for Henry because the Titans' passing or rushing offense has been bad from an efficiency perspective. Henry's 5 targets turned to 34 yards. So are we bumping up Henry if Hilliard misses time?
I think so. He's still efficient on the ground. He had almost 50 yards over expectation, 2.84 on a per carry basis. I think Jamal Williams had like 2.3 yards per carry.
Didn't you tweet that he had like negative 46 rushing yards over expectation? Or was that
I did not tweet that because I don't tweet, but I should have tweeted it. But that was the lowest. That was the lowest output of any single game for a running back this year.
Why are they giving carries to okay, I'm flipping it. Why are they giving carries to Jamal Williams when they've got Justin Jackson on the roster? I got to take the thing people did with Justin Jackson, the best running back on the Lions, and spin it the other direction now. Go Cats.
But yeah, with Henry, we like he's still an efficient rusher. If he gets the targets, like he's back on. And I'm not saying like he was unplayable or not really in the consideration set, but there's a big difference because Derrick Henry, and I know that the simplest thing is to like link him to Nick Chubb and say that they're very similar, but like those guys at times can play like 55 or 60% of the snaps, and that's very different than like having this guy's playing 75% of the snaps. So I think this is a bump up for Derrick Henry, and I feel good in saying that.
If you put Nick Chubb at a 75% snap rate, I'd pay a lot for him.
And then like give him 5 targets instead of 0 ever for the full season.
That's a game changer. Yeah. He faces the Chargers next week.
Oh, goodness.
I know that they played well on the ground last night, but like,
well, Miami just didn't even bother trying to run the ball.
They're also bad. They're just a bad rushing team. And I know Tennessee has not been great, but they're better than Miami. Like, I'm not going to ask you to name that salary. We can do that too. But like over under in the Sunday Million, 27.5% roster rate for Derrick Henry.
Slightly over.
I think I agree because people are going to justifiably talk themselves into, oh, he's going to go nuts. Now name me a salary if we assume there's no Hilliard.
I already saw it.
I did too. It's 89. Do you think that's fair?
I was probably going to say 9,000. So
yeah, I think so too. And having both him and Jamar Chase around there, that makes you feel good about the studs for next week at an early glance. So I think that's going to be, and like, I'm guessing Mike Williams and Keenan Allen won't have super, super high salaries. So we can get a little game stack in there and not blow everything. So I'm into that for sure. Jeff Wilson left Sunday night's game with a hip injury, was ruled out. He got carted to the locker room, so didn't look good there. Raheem Mostert wound up playing 74% of the snaps, resulted in just 44 yards. We had interest in Mostert earlier this year before the Wilson trade. Would you go back to him if Wilson misses time now?
This is starting to feel like I mean, like, don't quote me on this, but it feels like the Buffalo Bills, where like they're tied to a really good offense. Now there might be one. I mean, Mostert played 74% of the snaps, over. He had a 57% route rate, but just one target. So one target on 17 routes. Is he ever going to burn? Like, I think he has the ability to burn us as a player.
He had 122 yards in scrimmage in week 5, which is better than any Bills running back has had this year. And Wilson had, I think, 146 at one point in a game. So I think that your comp is broadly correct.
Yeah.
I think it's just like, it's like a slightly more juiced up version. And I mean, slightly, not a lot more juiced up, but I think that's probably pretty fair.
So like, if I contextualize it that way,
yeah,
I could not really be excited if the salary's above like 67.
Yeah, I would need it. And they get the Bills next week. So they're on the Saturday slate. We might need to save salary there. So like, because it's a 3-game slate, you might be forced into it. But like, if it's a full slate, I think that I probably would view it similar to the way I viewed Deontay Foreman coming into this week, where it's like, yeah, he's a consideration if I need to save salary and want to differentiate a bit, but I'm not super itchy to get there. I think that's kind of the way I'd view him there.
I'm not gonna push back. This team, I don't think really wants to run the ball very much, and they can't.
They can't. And like Tua kind of looked like he had the yips to the first half last night. He played better in the second half, but like it was hard to play worse.
Yeah.
So that's concerning.
Yeah.
As someone who likes Tua a lot, it's uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, and like you don't have to make everything about. I'm not saying you. I'm saying like the royal you. Like you don't have to make everything like, oh, would you rather have Tua or Herbert? Like, is your franchise quarterback? Like you see that stuff all the time, and I'm like, last night made it feel like it wasn't particularly close.
Yeah, that was a weird week of discourse.
Also,
as someone again who I like Tua a lot, and I want to root for Tua, I'm taking Justin Herbert, but like it was annoying discourse. I like both guys, and I just wanted that to be that. And but the Tua thing is very unsettling. The yips recently, it seems like.
Any thoughts on Tyreek's ankle?
He played through it.
He kept playing, but
yeah. Okay. He's been kind of banged up most of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Waddle, I think I'm actually more worried about because he's been playing through injuries and didn't get a lot of usage last night. So he could easily bounce back and like go nuts against the Bills. But I think I might be more worried about him than Tyreek, honestly.
Those guys got like no separation. Even Tyreek on that sideline touchdown he
had more separation on the fumble recovery than he did on most of his passes.
Yeah.
Dameon Pierce suffered an ankle injury and couldn't return. Lovie Smith said after the game that he couldn't return, like specifically used that word, which implies it's probably a legit injury. After Pierce played his final snap in the fourth quarter, Houston ran just 12 plays, 3 running backs at a touch, 2 carries and a target for Rex Burkhead. Dario Gumbawale had a target, Benjamin had a rush. We can continue to avoid this backfield, right?
Yeah, skip them.
Okay. Tyler Huntley was ruled out for the game due to a concussion. Anthony Brown filled in. Brown had just 6 dropbacks and struggled. He had competent efficiency stats last year at Oregon, and he ran a lot, but it's not ideal. I'm not breaking news by saying that. J.K. Dobbins returned to the majority role for the Ravens backfield, 43% snap rate, 15 carries for 120 yards and a touchdown. As expected, no targets for Dobbins. That's just kind of the baseline with running backs in this backfield. So he's kind of back to the J.K. Dobbins of old, but alongside a third-string quarterback instead of Lamar Jackson, potentially. So Dobbins showed life, but obviously there are drawbacks there, and now maybe tied to a third-string quarterback. Where are you on Dobbins right now? Because I think we could just say no Mark Andrews right now, right? That's fair.
No Mark Andrews. Dobbins is always borderline with Lamar Jackson beside him anyway. Yeah. We don't really play guys who have no ability to catch passes. Not ability, I should say, but like no opportunity to catch passes is more accurate. So, I mean, I guess if like Dobbins was staring us in the face at like 6,400 and we really were strapped for value, I'd consider it. But
it's on the Saturday slate, so against Cleveland, who can't stop the rush. So I can see that
much more viable. Yeah.
Yeah. If he's 64, I think that'd be enough. Hypothetically, because I don't think the Saturday slate's up yet. Hypothetically, would you do Dobbins at 64 or Mostert at 67 in their respective matchups for Saturday?
These salaries that we just
we made up in our heads.
I would do.
Actually, probably disregard salary. Just who would you prefer?
I'd probably lean Dobbins. It's like guaranteed work.
Yeah, I agree. Better matchup, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike White got obliterated. Got hurt twice, left the field, but came back both times. Corey Davis also ruled out for the game early for the Jets. White went to the hospital after the game, did fly back with the team apparently. No word yet on if he'll be able to go. We also don't know if it would be Joe Flacco or Zach Wilson if White were to miss time. Davis leaving led to a big opportunity for Elijah Moore. He had a team high 10 targets and a 92% route rate. Garrett Wilson got 78 yards on 7 targets. Nobody else above 35 yards. So we like Garrett Wilson. But do you think there is enough juice in this passing offense to consider going to Elijah Moore now that his role is expanded for a second consecutive game? I will say the targets were down last week in terms of like target share, but his snaps were up. Now he had snaps and the targets. So is there enough here to be okay with 2 guys? And is that still viable if it's Joe Flacco starting?
I mean, they threw a lot with Flacco, but that was not necessarily
because they were down 30 against the Browns and came back and won.
Yeah.
And it was ugly. He came in for like a couple plays on Sunday and it was hideous.
Yeah, it was tough. I think he got sacked on the first play. Maybe fumbled it. I don't remember.
You remember that like that viral clip of when Tom Savage started Deshaun Watson's first game in the NFL? And there's a clip, I think it was from Roto Pat Doherty. It was like Savage like doing a drop back and it looked like he was moving in slow motion. That's Joe Flacco.
It's not great.
Yeah. I'd rather have Zach Wilson than Joe Flacco. I'm like, I know that's egregious to say, but I'm saying it.
So like, I think the real question here is like, if Elijah Moore is in like the mid to upper 5s, like I'm okay with it just because we never have options down there and he's a good football player, despite the fact that he hasn't been on the field for a lot of the season. I think this is the bigger thing here is Garrett Wilson. Like he's been really good. I just throw the classic Brandon Cooks comp on him where it's like he's the only piece of an offense that's worth targeting. But the downgrade here and the elevated salary that he's been at, I think might just make him someone that I don't consider. So give me a salary on those 2 guys.
I saw them. Okay. You do it on both.
Ooh, they play the Lions next week.
Yeah. Playoff implications for both teams, as we all expected.
Yeah. I would be comfortable rostering Wilson. Comfortable 66. And I don't think we'll be there. More like, I hope, like 57.
Are we assuming with Joe Flacco starting?
Sure.
Okay. Because Garrett Wilson's 78.
Okay. I said like I'd be comfortable at 66. I assumed he'd be like 72. I don't know.
Well, he was 72 this past week.
Right. I didn't think it'd be much of a change.
Yeah. No, it went up.
Why?
Lions, I'm assuming.
I guess.
I also think that he was popular again this week. So, it makes sense.
But like that's the thing is like people he's like one of the guys like a Brandon Cooks where it's like you can play him. Like he'll get his targets. He's productive. Again, not Brandon. We need a better comp. I need a better comp than that. But
yeah, no, like early career Brandon Cooks is awesome. I think it's a fair comp. Yeah.
But wow, I did not expect that. So I'm not gonna play Garrett Wilson.
I think Elijah Moore is gonna be really popular this week.
Yeah.
Given it's 2 straight weeks of increased snaps, 1 week of increased targets, but he hasn't had any yardage. Yeah. And like at some point that has to matter. Like,
yeah.
Can you like? He did have 3 deep targets this week. He had 2 each the previous 2 weeks. Maybe I'm disregarding. I don't know. Maybe I should be higher on him. But if he does wind up tracking to be popular, I think that it's okay to be skeptical if that happens.
Did you tell me a salary yet?
56, I think.
Okay.
I've closed it. So
56. All right.
Yeah, 56.
Like I'm substantially more likely to play Elijah.
Oh, I agree.
Then
yeah.
Well, like what salary would you have put Wilson at, like with a downgrade?
74 probably.
So you still would have bumped him up from where he was?
I thought he was a little bit undersized at 72 if it were against the Lions. Against the Bills, I thought 72 is probably about right.
Yeah. I don't know. I still feel like anything in the approaching 7,500 in an offense like this, I don't want parts of it. So
yeah, I think he's just really good. So I'm okay.
He is. Again, I know I said 66. That's where I'd be comfortable with like Joe Flacco, which I know is like a pipe dream, but I assumed he was going to be at least 7. and probably 72. But
what if it's Mike White? Like hypothetically, he bends his body back together.
I'm not going to get there at 78. I don't think I can do that.
Fair enough. Baker Mayfield made his Rams debut this week and helped lead them to victory. He was... Wait, are we in rule changes? Did I skip stuff? Wow. How did I get down here? I skipped like 16 things. I'm going to go back up on the rundown. What a moron. Maybe you should host. Maybe I should eject myself. Did I also get injured in warm-ups?
You don't want me to host.
Kenny Pickett ruled out with concussion for the Steelers. Very different vibe. Mitchell Trubisky came in and threw 3 picks, but overall numbers actually were not as bad, I don't think, as the 3 picks would indicate. I know. Whatever. He got Deontay Johnson 8 targets for 82 yards.
Yeah. He threw 3 picks, but like it was pretty good.
I didn't say pretty good. I said it was better than you'd think. Still 3 picks. I'm not defending Mitch Trubisky because I respect my.
But you are defending Deontay Johnson.
I am not. 8 targets for 82 yards, his most since week 3. Let that settle in, despite having like 87,000 targets in that time. Nobody else had more than 4 targets. So I never really got here outside of Pat Freiermuth at times with this offense with Pickett. I think it's a downgrade to Trubisky. I'm assuming this wouldn't change with him, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not playing Deontay Johnson.
Nope.
But I'm surprised that he got 82 yards. That tells me a lot.
Correct.
That's a big part of it. What did Najee do here?
We're talking about him later.
Okay.
I have a note on him in situations to monitor.
Well, I'm surprised you're not already there based on how you've been treating this rundown.
Yeah, salary scroll. Note to future me, don't skip parts of the rundown. Minor one, but Daniel Bellinger had a rib injury. Richie James also left with a concussion very late, so I didn't actually hear if he was in concussion protocol or not because he just didn't have time to come back. But James led the team with 9 targets. Isaiah Hodgins had 6. Darius Slayton had just 3 targets, and it wasn't a Darius Slay thing, as only 26% of the routes for Slayton came against Slay. This is a very confusing matchup, and I hate it every time. Darius Slayton versus Darius Slay. So the banged up Giants get more banged up. Do we need to like cross off this offense, potentially including Saquon, because there are so many freaking injuries here? I also get Saquon. We should have noted. I didn't put this on the sheet. I should have. But his snap rate was about 32% as he was playing through that neck injury, and partly because they're getting torched. But yeah,
32%, 48 yards on 13 adjusted opportunities. So that's tough. But yeah, I mean, like I'm low on this offense. Again, I kind of treat it like the other New Jersey team. I don't know. I feel weird calling them the New York teams, but
yeah. I mean, they're called New York, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. That's your out, I think.
Yeah, but again, I'm just still a little astonished that Garrett Wilson's salary is $7,800. So
yeah, I get it. People like him. He's good. He's a rookie. He's fun, but it's a little high. A little high for sure. Okay, let's dig into role changes for this week. The Chargers finally got to see them with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Both those guys had at least 92 yards. Williams had 6 targets. Allen had 14. Williams had 2 deep targets. Allen had none. But Allen did have 4 deep targets last week, so it's not like you can't get them. Just didn't hear. Austin Eckler still got his 8 targets and turned it into 104 yards from scrimmage. Also handled 8 of 19 red zone chances. Justin Herbert averaged 0.13 passing net expected points per dropback, which is better than his full season number, still a bit above average overall. 8 out was 5.4 because Joe Lombardi hates us. So it's an upgrade for Herbert to have both these guys here, which I think because we're upgrading the offense, it makes it a lateral move for Eckler, despite the fact he might not get as many targets. I think that the potential for more red zone chances or for the team is good. So I'm very okay with Allen and Williams, despite some imperfections. What's your view of this Chargers offense, having seen these guys together once again?
I like them. Love Mike Williams. He's like a highlight reel waiting to happen. 4 downfield targets for him, which I have is 10 plus yards. Jim uses 16 plus. So I have Keenan Allen with 2 of those, but Allen's 8 out overall, 4.3. So like not gonna do a whole lot there, but I'm not that worried about like the ADOT for Herbert. I might go through and look at ADOT without running back targets, because like I would imagine Herbert's fine. He just throws so much to Austin Eckler underneath, and
he had 5 deep targets and like 60 throws last night.
I mean, he got
also
Mike
like
Williams
the fact that he's
14.
throwing to running backs that much is actually annoying in terms of his upside.
he got Mike Williams a 14.7 yard ADOT. He got Josh Palmer a 14.8 yard ADOT on 6 targets each. That's fun. I think a lot of like, so you had him with what, 5 downfield targets, you said? Yeah. So I have him at 12 if you make the cutoff 10 yards.
Yeah.
I think it's more intermediate throws than just DPs. So I'm not that concerned. And again, it's kind of like we like catches for running backs. We like carries for receivers. I'm okay with like dump offs to a running back who can like pick up 10, 12 yards on a, just doing nothing for a quarterback. Maybe that's the new combo. Like, how many easy throws does he get in a game?
How many points do you get for an easy completion that goes for 10 yards? Like, you get 0.2 points. Sick. I actually don't know how many points. I should know that, but 0.25. I think it's like, I don't know, whatever.
Wait, it's what? It's
I don't know. We're not
point for every 25 yards.
We're not doing this math right now.
All right, cool.
Like, it's just not worth that much. And like, they're not really capable of generating explosives except to Big Mike. So like, and I think Keenan could too. I think the ADOT's annoying. I think the fact they can't run is a blessing because it means they're going to throw a ton, which can kind of mask some of the issues with the ADOT. So name me a salary on Mike Williams and Keenan Allen.
How many yards do you think Justin Herbert has thrown for in his past 2 games each?
I don't know. I honestly have no idea.
Like just ballpark it.
I have no idea. I'm not going to guess this.
So he's got 367 he had against Miami, 335 against the Raiders on 51 and 47 attempts.
Exactly. You need that number of attempts for him to like be good for DFS. Oh, I used him at MVP last night for a
single. Do you think he's going to get that number of attempts? He's had 51, 47, and 47 passes
because they can't
past
run.
3 games.
So yeah, you'll probably get there.
What is your
because you are dependent on a very specific script. If they get ahead, he's done. Whereas if most other teams get ahead, like Jalen Hurts still threw while playing from ahead yesterday. Like there are more paths to them being good. They're not dependent on 67 pass attempts to get there.
Next Gen Stats had their win probability at 78% at halftime.
But like it was a 1-score game. Also 78% is not that big.
So like you're worried that they're going to get up 21 points at halftime because of a guy who can't throw the ball down the field.
He can throw the ball down the field. He doesn't have explosive wide receivers. It's not a Herbert thing. It's an offense thing and personnel thing. It's not about Herbert. I know he can throw it down the field. That's why it's so frustrating. He could be amazing for DFS. They didn't put him in a freaking cage. Free my boy.
I still have interest there.
Okay.
If he had the 335 yards and like the multiple touchdowns, he just doesn't have it all line up. That's all.
Okay. Well, he's not scored more than 28.76 FanDuel points this year. He's been under 20 in most of these games. That's not a Herbert problem. That is an offense problem, and it's annoying.
Could you read the first line of this blurb again to me?
The Chargers finally got a full game out of Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Okay, cool. He went for 18 FanDuel points. Sick. Like game changer.
He went for 367 and just happened to have 1 touchdown.
Yeah. Do better. But in all seriousness, name me a salary on Keenan and Mike Will.
Keenan probably like 81 because he gets 1 billion targets.
Okay.
Mike Williams, much more volatile. I'd be like 75.
I was gonna say 76 for Keenan and 73 for Mike Will, because Mike Will's like his volume is real slim. Keenan's 8,000. So that's right where you were, and then Mike Will is 72. I like that.
So like Keenan Allen or Garrett Wilson, like I don't think it's a conversation, right?
I go Keenan Allen. Yeah,
like
even at their respective salaries. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying like Garrett Wilson's almost Keenan Allen's salary.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Okay. I'm just, I feel weird with the 66, but that was a comfort level thing. My expectation was like the 72. That's weird.
With the Herbert stuff, I don't think he's out of play. I'm just frustrated that like it requires so much volume to him to get to 20 FanDuel points. And that's kind of the same thing with Keenan too, honestly. He is very dependent on getting but like he's probably going to get those. So like that's true for both of them. I just wish there were some iota of like explosion in this offense. That's all I ask for. And again, it's not a Herbert problem. It's a Joe Lombardi thing. But anyway, Joe Mixon returned for the Bengals after Samaje Perine played well in his absence, and Perine had a legitimate role. Perine is on the field for a 2-minute drill at the end of the first half. Mixon played a 59% snap rate, Perine 43%. Mixon also had 14 carries and 2 targets for 106 total yards. Perine 4 carries and 5 targets for 24 yards, but did score in a red zone carry. Overall, 3 red zone chances for Perine, 1 for Mixon. Where are you at on both these guys right now?
I don't really care about coaches, and I honestly could name only a handful of coaches because it's not part of my process. I just don't care. But I will never forget the name Zach Taylor.
So. Because of the T. Higgins injured in warmups thing, and then he still plays the snap.
Well, there's that, and then he comes out this week and says, "Look, Samaji's been good, but Joe Mixon's our starting running back. Last game out, he had 5 touchdowns. I thought it was a strong vote of confidence." Mixon did have this almost a 60% snap rate. So it was about 60-40 there. But at halftime, Perine outsnapped Mixon, partially because of that 2-minute drill, but which, is part of Joe Mixon's situation before the injury and before Perine broke out. Like Perine pass catching back on the field for 2-minute drills. I get that. But this was rough for this whole team. And I don't really think I'm into Joe Mixon like I was this week. I thought he was a really good play coming back because usually people are low on players returning from injury. I thought there was a strong vote of confidence for Joe Mixon's role, and I didn't really see it this week.
Do you think this will be the new role going forward, status quo, with like a 60-40 split?
I mean, like you could make the case, okay, it was his first week back, and so he was a bit limited, but
I wouldn't be shocked if it's similar to last year where like Perine is like their 2-minute back, their third down back, and that's probably like 60-40 split. So like, I don't think that's out of the question. I will note that Mixon still had a lot of upside last year despite that role. So if his salary were to come down, I'd still be interested. The Bucs next week is a really tough spot. But I'd have interest like broadly in him, even if the role does come down, as long as the salary comes down too.
Yeah. Give me a salary that you'd feel comfortable with.
77.
81.
Okay. I mean, if it weren't for the Bucs, I'd probably go higher, but it is the Bucs, so I can't. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
It's actually time for me to talk Baker Mayfield.
Okay.
For real this time. Made his Rams debut and helped lead the team to victory. He was solidly efficient, finished with 0.15 passing net expected points per dropback. 7 of his 35 attempts were deep. 8 out was 8.0. Maybe we should get Justin Herbert in a Sean McVay offense? ? Oh, even when he doesn't have good pass catchers, he's still chucking it downfield. Huh, weird. You can actually do that. Tutu Atwell got 9 targets. 3 of those were deep. Ben Skoranek made a massive contested catch because why not? Again, #go Cats. He's only a Northwestern person if he does well. When he's bad, he's a Notre Dame player. That's the rule. 8 targets for Skoranek, 89 yards, 2 deep targets. Van Jefferson also had 2 deep targets, the game-winning touchdown as well, but there's 4 overall targets. This game against a very bad Raiders secondary that didn't prepare for Mayfield, but it's still impressive. So is this enough to get you buy into any pieces of the Rams offense, which we had both written off previously?
No.
I'm more receptive to it, but I don't want to actively seek out anything. I think that's where I'm at.
Like who would you have most interest in?
Fan. I know it wasn't like a lot of usage, but like I believe most in his talent.
And to what degree, like, do you think is he like just a
like if he were 55 on a main slate, I'd be like, I suppose maybe I'll get there.
So like you're a little bit higher than me, but this isn't like like I want to target Van Jeff.
Correct.
Like,
it's more so like they were full cross-offs. They are uncrossed, but still not actively being sought after.
Yeah.
The backfield sucks. Don't go there. But like, I am upping them, not to the point where I'm seeking them out, but where they're no longer crossed off. Like they're better than the Texans. Congrats. Hang the banner. Like they've got that going for them in terms of DFS. If it keeps happening, and we can get like predictable volume from Tutu, Skoranek, or Jefferson, cool. Like we can reassess then. But It's an upgrade for sure, just not to the point where I'm seeking him out. The Cowboys didn't blow out the Texans from the get-go, and we saw that lead to a lot more snaps, or at least to more snaps for Tony Pollard than Zeke Elliott. Halftime, Pollard had outsnapped Zeke 23-12, which was 68% to 35%. End of the game, it was 58% to 49% in Pollard's favor. Pollard had 62 yards on 10 carries and 5 targets. Zeke had 81 yards on 15 carries and 5 targets. So how does your view of them shift based on what we saw in this game?
I'm low here because they're both good. We got to remember that this was not Tony Pollard's backfield. This has been Ezekiel Elliott's backfield until he was injured, and then it became Pollard's backfield. And now it seems like Elliott's doing enough to remain very relevant and take a lot of high leverage work. So it's almost back to how I would view this earlier in the season, with a slight downgrade for Zeke, who we weren't really interested in anyway, and maybe a slight bump up from Pollard from the beginning of the season, which is a big downgrade from where he was in recent weeks. So
name a salary for me so I can get a vibe on like where you're at. With Pollard, I don't care about Zeke. Pollard specifically against the Jags next week, name me a salary.
So it's one of those spots where I feel like, and it was almost this week. Well, that's not true because of the matchup, but like I feel like with Pollard, it's going to be one of those spots where I look at the salary first and then talk myself into it. So I'd probably say like 76.
That's what you would say?
That's what I think will be. What I would be comfortable with is like 72.
Well, that's what I thought too, 72. But like it's a 72 where I'd want exposure in turns because I think that he still has massive upside. So like there are players where they can be you're shaking your head. Is he 8,000?
82.
Oof.
And Zeke 75.
So is Pollard's upside enough to justify using him at 82?
Yes, the upside is. The probability that he hits that upside, I don't think is high enough to prioritize that.
I think I disagree slightly. I think his meeting expectations bad relative to that salary, but I think his upside relative to that salary is very good.
That's what I said, though. I said his upside is good.
Well, I mean, salary. Like obtainable upside. Like I think he's more likely to get there than you do. I think is what I'm saying.
Okay,
because
that I agree with.
We saw. Like, I think this Jags rush defense is fine. We saw the Titans move the ball against them, and the Cowboys rushing offense is much better. And we saw Pollard run. He'd actually run fewer routes than Zeke for 2 consecutive games. That flipped this week. I think it was like 24-13 in routes this week. So I would think that I'd still be receptive to him in tournaments, but it'd have to be at like a 20-15% exposure kind of thing.
I think my biggest concern, and I know Tony Pollard can score from anywhere, but I think my bigger concern is the elevated health of Zeke and his red zone potential.
Yeah. So, he looks good too. He's playing well, so he's justifying that.
How would you compare like Tony Pollard to a healthy like Aaron Jones or healthy DeAndre Swift in the past?
I can't remember that. It's been so long. But like compared to Aaron Jones, I think he's the same.
It's like, you rostering Aaron Jones at 82 in this game?
This is one of the better games on the slate, so potentially, yeah.
Like, I'm not going to talk anyone out of Pollard, and I might get there myself if I end up stacking that game in certain ways. But I don't think he's not a write down, and I think that if he's not a write down,
no. But he's like someone whose upside is still not nullified by his salary, is what I would say.
Correct.
Okay, Jerick McKinnon played great on Sunday. He earned playing time. Good for him. I'm genuinely happy for him, despite the fact that I like Isaiah Pacheco. I think it's cool. 134 yards in scrimmage from McKinnon. A lot of it came on one freakish play from Patrick Mahomes, but they leaned on him late in the game too. Pacheco did have 93 yards and a season high 3 targets. He has 80 yards in, I think, 4 consecutive games now, 80 or more. Is it time we finally consider McKinnon DFS now, though?
Maybe. How much of like the workload do you think was script related, where they're like, we're not going to run against the Broncos, we're just going to get Jerick McKinnon 9 targets because he had six carries?
That could be it.
I think this team is okay running because their pass rate over expectation has come down. The receivers have been banged up in recent weeks, but I think maybe this one is a little bit more script related, and it feels like maybe an Antonio Gibson from like 5 weeks ago, where his role got a lot better. Maybe not even 5 weeks ago, but it feels like 5 weeks ago. And we're assuming that sticks, but it doesn't, and they go back the other way. So I think he's very reasonable, but probably not someone I'm like going to prioritize. And they play Houston next week. What's that spread? 90?
14. McKinnon's salary and then a Pacheco salary. Give me both.
64 for both.
McKinnon
and Pacheco's going to be way higher.
McKinnon 62. That's not bad.
That's reasonable. Yeah.
Pacheco 76.
I knew he was going to be, because he's going to be the
he should get a lot of work. The Houston bump it's got to be like 10%.
And like as huge favorites.
Yeah.
Like what would you put Pacheco at?
68.
I can't get there with him because he's the early down back, but he's not the red zone back. So it's not even like a true Damian Harris situation of years past.
Yeah, but he's got yardage at least, and
but I don't want to roster.
It's like
he's 68 or 70
not used in the red zone, or I don't know. I don't think 68 is a very high salary, so
I think that's pushing. Like I need to make sure that this he's not going to get yanked in the red zone.
I mean, it's the Chiefs; they'll be there a lot. I think that's a difference maker. There's really no true comp for this.
There's not, no, but
like they're very good. I don't know. 76 is high, but
it's high.
Yeah. Evan Engram went bananas on Sunday, as we all expected. He had more than 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Were you going to say something? Did you expect this?
No, I was going to say, if not for the T. Higgins thing that just had me too annoyed not to lead off with, I was going to say we did a whole trend on the upside of the Jaguars offense. Now, I didn't explicitly say that Evan Engram was going to have a career year or a career game.
He had a career year in one game.
He did, yeah. But I'm just saying we did specifically talk about the Jaguars' offensive ceilings.
So I bet the Jags money line. I had the over in that game, and I didn't use them in DFS because I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot, Brandon. You know this, but I need other people to know this too. Engram, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. His previous season high was 69 yards. In games with Marvin and Zay Jones, Engram's target share is up to 17%, which is respectable for a tight end. That ranks third in the team behind Christian Kirk and Zay Jones, who are both at 23%, now tied. I think that's also kind of noteworthy. Name that salary for Engram after this outburst.
Like 57, maybe?
Yeah. I think that works because we want yardage upside of tight end, and $150 is a lot. He's $5,500. He's going to get steamed.
He is
going to get steamed to H double hockey sticks, man. What about Zay and Kirk? Where are you on that?
This is a tough one.
I also think I'm going back to ETN this week. He's 7,000 against the Cowboys.
Yeah,
I know it's been bad, but didn't work out. But I'm a little bit worried that the foot thing may be an issue because he's been struggling ever since then. But Titans very good rush defense. Cowboys are not as good there, so I could see it being a bounce back, especially at that salary.
Zay maybe like 66. Put him in the Garrett Wilson zone.
63. We're gonna be all on the Jags this week.
I mean, Kirk's been up there.
Yeah.
74.
I think that's influenced by where his salary was before.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little high at 76. So I think 7,000 is appropriate for him, and he's 71.
Okay.
Broad takeaway is we're gonna be on the Jags. Lawrence is 74, in case you're curious. Just gonna throw that out.
I mean, that's just our tagline at this point.
Our Jags.
The Heat Check Daily Fantasy Podcast, we're going to be on the Jags.
We're going to be on the Jags.
Although this past week, not enough, apparently, based on what you just said.
Yeah. But I think we're going to be there this week. And I'm okay with that. I'm not worried about that with this team. It's fun. DeAndre Swift's expanded role was not from last week. He had a 43% snap rate at halftime, wound up at 34%. Swift totaled 39 yards on 10 opportunities. Detroit gave 16 carries to Jamal Williams, who averaged 2.3 yards per carry for negative 46 rushing yards over expectation. The worst output by any back in a single game this year. Where would you need Swift's salary to be to consider him?
Realistically, at the Garrett Wilson zone of 66, somewhere around there. Because I think there's still potential with the pass catching, but this is going to hurt my entire heart to say. And I love Jerick McKinnon, but like Jerick McKinnon or DeAndre Swift straight up at this point.
Probably Swift, but like I don't.
Not by
like
a lot,
Swift,
maybe.
No, not by a lot. It's like it's Swift, but I don't feel great about it.
Play the Jets next week.
Also, stop complaining about Justin Jackson getting work. He's good. He had like 190 yards against the Texans last year.
You know who is also very good at football though?
Jared Goff.
DeAndre Swift.
Oh, I was saying Jared Goff.
Whose salary is $6,600.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fair. What's Jared Goff's? I don't know who are they playing. Oh, they're playing the Jets. I don't want that.
I just said that.
I don't want that. Jared Goff auditioning for his 2023 team. I'm starting that ball rolling right now. Jared Goff and the Jets is my new fever dream.
The New Jersey Jets.
What's that?
The New Jersey Jets, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
That's want that to happen. Team name.
No,
that sounds cooler.
It doesn't. James Cook's role did not expand in week 14. He was outsnapped by Devin Singletary, 27-22. Cook had a slight edge in the first half, but Singletary wound up at 50% versus Cook at 41%. Neither guy had more than 43 yards. My bad. If you're listening to this and I talked you into James Cook last week, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Talked me into it.
I talked you into it. I shouldn't have. It was a bad play on my part. But if it makes you feel better, dear listener, and you're mad at me for this, A, I get it. You should be. B, it ruined my whole day, like in terms of like my DFS day. So at least I got punished for my sins, and you can feel good about that. So I understand your anger, justifiable. I have been punished by the universe. I hope that appeases you. Any thoughts for you in this backfield, or we just cross it off?
So I think it's more of a broad like takeaway where this is one that I flagged, I guess Monday as like, or maybe Thursday too, but there's a difference between seeing a role and projecting a role change. We saw a role change for Cook to go from basically like 20% of snaps to about 45% last week. You could nitpick and say like this was a different role, but they're both 45% last week, 50 versus 41 this week. Basically, I don't think the coaches know like that someone's snap rate was up or down 4 percentage points, but
yeah,
it basically stayed the same. The role it did not increase, and so there's a big difference between seeing it and projecting it. We projected this one incorrectly. That can hurt us, obviously, but it can also help us if we get it right. So
I'd rather be too early and mess it up than be too late and miss out on like high upside stuff.
Yeah, because these guys are going to be at low salaries. So, you know, it is what it is. But again, it's just an important reminder because we're going to see a lot of this down the stretch.
Oh, yeah,
where
for
like
sure.
Someone gets a slight bump and we're like, oh, this guy's like to the moon.
Right.
And it's like, no, that's just his new role. It's like he's just
to the core.
Yeah.
To the core. Zonovan Knight did still have a role with Michael Carter back in action, but true committee by snap rates. But Knight had the majority of the rushing work, and Carter was the receiving back. Carter led in snap rate 51% to 47%. Knight had 17 carries, including both the carries inside the red zone and 2 targets. Carter, 5 carries and 6 targets. He had 1 out of 3 red zone targets. Are you going to either guy here? Because it is kind of 2-man committee at least. But does this cross out both guys for you? They get the Lions next week, which is important to keep in mind.
2-man committee is much better than 2.5 or 3 like we're getting with the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important to keep in mind. And I would say historically over the years of the heat check, this would not be enough to interest me, but it's a different NFL right now where we're not just loading up on running backs getting 90% of snaps. Those don't exist. So these guys are more viable. I'd probably lean Knight because they came out in the second half and just leaned on him to get back in that game a bit.
It's not even a lean for me. I think it's definitively Knight. Like he played well. Carter lost a fumble.
No, I'm saying like I would lean toward playing Knight. I'm not going to play Michael Carter.
Cool. Yeah,
sorry. That was I didn't phrase it how I meant it, but like I would lean toward playing Knight. I'm not going to play Carter.
Yeah.
Give me a salary for Knight then.
65.
I think that's fair. He's 72. So they just like took expectation for the Jets and just like
add 700.
Yeah.
So Joe Flacco is 86, I assume. I searched Joe and it was Joe Mixon. He was 81. I was like, oh, it's actually 64. So we're good.
Yeah.
No one will talk me to Joe Flacco this week. Don't you dare even try. But 72 is probably too high, I think.
Yeah.
Knight or Pacheco at their respective salaries?
What was Pacheco?
76.
It's got to be Pacheco because the offensive expectations there.
But neither guy is really. That's tough.
But they're not write downs.
Yeah. Would there be a salary that tempt you on Carter? 59.
I don't think so.
Yeah. That's low, but I don't think I'll get there.
I don't think.
So let's talk about the Sunday morning news. Travis Homer, I thought was going to be the lead back for the Seattle Seahawks. So I had 56% at one point. And then I'm getting set up for the WFFC and see a Shefty report that Tony Jones is going to start. And I'm like, okay, it's kind of annoying. I feel like it'll still be Homer for the most part, but I dumped it down to 41%. And then Homer plays every snap for like the first two series. I'm like, okay, cool. Like this actually worked out in my favor. I read the situation correctly and it didn't matter. He did nothing. Very rarely Shefty doesn't miss. So like, this is just kind of a one-off thing. I'm not going to like, but it was annoying. I would say the way this one worked. Homer had 9 out of 10 running back carries. He had 3 targets on 26 routes, but only 34 yards in scrimmage, 91% snap rate. Homer had 3 out of 4 red zone carries for 3 of 9 total chances, but very empty. Sounds like Kenneth Walker maybe back for Thursday. DJ Dallas, I think, is less likely to play. But how would you handle Homer if we assume that there's no Walker once again?
I mean, it's hard to like balk at a 91% snap rate with no production. That's basically exactly what we're doing this recap show for, is to figure out who's on the field, but maybe didn't have the best game. Although then we would just be talking about, maybe not anymore, but Devin Singletary like week after week.
I refuse. I'd quit.
But let's say there's no Kenneth Walker next week for Thursday night. His salary's not gonna be that high. We're gonna want to play Christian McCaffrey. So I think you just load up on Travis Homer.
I would do that. I think it's discouraging, but like he gets passing game work. They clearly trusted him. Maybe they wouldn't continue that, but
if it were a main slate, like what salary range would you think?
63.
Yeah, that's kind of wild for a 91% snap rate, but it's
the Singletary thing though. What's it worth?
Yeah.
But that's where I'd be. Chris Moore played well for the Texans without Nico Collins and Brandon Cooks. He turned 11 targets into 124 yards. 3 of those targets were deep. So he weren't on Collins and Cooks before. Can Moore get you to finally like a Texans pass catcher or no?
This team's like doing a 2 quarterback rotation. I guess the question...
It's a quarterback and a former 6th string wide receiver.
Yeah.
Let's be accurate here. We strive for accuracy on the heat check.
I mean, they did some stuff this week for sure. I guess the question is, how interested are you in making sure you can bring back your Chief stacks?
I have no interest.
No interest in these guys?
Full respect to Chris Moore. I'm happy for you, bud. I'm glad you went for 125 yards. I don't care. I'm not doing it. I'm not chasing that stupid team. I refuse.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. If they're going to play Jeff Driscoll, again, a converted a guy who was so bad at quarterback, he converted to wide receiver and then converted back, I'm not doing it. That's not happening. What's more salary?
6,000.
I'd rather use Elijah Moore than Chris Moore at that point.
You could go, well, there's DJ Moore, Chris Moore, Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore, Sky Moore.
After the way my let Geno Cook stack worked this week was Geno Smith, Dalvin, and James Cook, I'm going to pass on those stacks for 1 week. I'm just going to go ahead and not do that for a week. Chikakonkwo didn't run a ton of routes this week, but got a lot of work, and he was good. Shocker. He ran about half the routes, but a season high 6 targets. He had a 2-point conversion as well. So again, the route rate is not great, but he's earning targets. He's getting yards. Knowing this usage, would you go back to Okonkwo if Burks were to miss more time?
He had a carry, Jim.
Yeah. Was it in the red zone?
It was a Jim carry. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Let's not.
No, it was not in the red zone.
Doesn't matter then.
Yeah, I mean, like this, he's super efficient, gets tons of yards per route run, which is like a really good stat. 2.14 this week. I'm assuming he still leads all tight ends that are qualified in that. Austin Hooper played one more snap, ran 6 more routes, had 68 yards to the 45. Didn't score though, but Okonkwo 2 red zone targets. Like I think it's a good spot. So I don't know if you asked me for a salary, but even if you did, I'm going to throw it back to you. Give me a salary for Okonkwo.
51. What is it?
51.
Oh, cool.
I typoed it. I'm working with a new keyboard, so I always miss the backspace. It's a whole thing.
I think that One-Eyed Jack Productions on YouTube had the proper reaction to your attempt at a joke. Just saying womp womp. I agree. Great.
That's good.
Great.
That's good stuff.
It was not.
Thank
I
you.
agree with
Thank you,
One-Eyed
Jack, for the kind words.
Womp womp is not a thank you situation. It was a correct assessment of the situation. Let's dive into situations to monitor. What else stood out to you on Sunday? Or Thursday. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, I didn't have a whole lot of stuff, but Jameson Williams scored, but just 13 snaps, 6 routes, not there yet. Justin Jefferson, though, like this is not, we're never going to talk about Justin Jefferson and role changes, but 12 downfield targets, which I have as 10 plus yards downfield. That would have tied him for 4th this week among all receivers and just raw targets. Like he's so good. His role's so good that, you know, it's time that we realistically consider someone like Jefferson as the answer in like, as opposed to running backs. It's not as safe. I know that, but it's like almost impossible to overstate how good his role is and how good he is.
Yeah. It's not the same consistency as Cooper Kupp had last year, but it's like better. Like, I don't know if the ceiling's better, but the ceiling's at least on par with, which is what I want to pay for. So yeah.
Yeah. And then I just have some notes on carries from pass catchers. Debo, get healthy soon, bud. He had 4 carries. Mac Hollins, though, and Ray McLeod, 3 each. Getting Mac Hollins carries makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, he's super athletic. He's fun. Yeah.
So that's fun. That would bump up Hollins for me. Tutu Atwell, DJ Moore each had 2. Moore had 1 in the red zone. Hope everything's working out for that team. And then notables with a carry, Jamar Chase, love to see it, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, also love to see that. But 2 tight end carries this week, David Njoku and Chikakonkwo. So
love it.
Love that.
Love that for both of them. With Mac Hollins stuff, I forgot to mention that Josh Jacobs is having x-rays on his finger. I haven't heard anything, which probably means it's okay.
Yeah.
But maybe we just have Mac Hollins play running back if Jacobs misses time. I'd be into that.
I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I'm down. My first note is Miles Sanders. He played 68% of the snaps on Sunday, which is his highest in a game with Boston Scott active. 17 carries for Sanders. Those were tied for his second most in those games. It's possible they're going to ride Sanders more in more important games. This might not be a note for the regular season, given how far ahead they are of everyone, but for playoffs, maybe we bump up Miles potentially. It could be just variance too, but it's worth noting, I think, that his snap rate was very high on Sunday. Najee Harris got a bit of a roll reduction for the Steelers. Snap rate was just 57%. Jalen Warren was at 40%. I gave some thought to Najee this week. This would put that to bed. He's looked better recently, but I need his snap rate to be higher to be super in there. James Washington made his Cowboys debut and played limited snaps, 6 total routes and 11 snaps. It ate into both Michael Gallup and Noah Brown a bit, though Gallup still ran a route on 83% of dropbacks. I think it adds in a little bit extra volatility for Gallup. I'm not worried. Wouldn't put it that far yet, but it's noteworthy to me on Gallup that he did lose a couple of routes there with Washington ramping up. Let's go now to philosophical changes from this week. The Browns remain run heavy and underwhelming offensively. Their second game with Deshaun Watson, 42% early down first half pass rate. They were below 50% last week as well. Watson was a negative 0.04 passing net expected points per dropback. He did funnel targets to Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Njoku, though he came with Amari Cooper dealing with an injury he picked up in practice. So it's inefficient, but we know where the ball is going, at least. So where are you on this offense, the Browns offense in the short term?
Don't like it. Watson looks terrible. Everything about like the peripherals are pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to say I won't use the pass catchers if I need them, but they're not really priorities, which feels weird.
I do think it was encouraging that Donovan Peoples-Jones had that usage alongside David Njoku.
Yeah.
Because every like legit game he's had this year has been when Njoku's been out. So I think that was actually one thing for me, was that I would be more receptive to DPJ going forward in games with Njoku based on that usage. I think that did help for me a bit.
Yeah, that's like the only change though. Give me a salary for those three pass catchers then.
Amari 72, DPJ 63, and Njoku 58.
Are they on the main slate?
They're on Saturday.
No, on Saturday. All right.
But I think that's where I'd be on them. Do you disagree with any of those? Yeah.
No, that sounds good.
Okay, Panthers went super run heavy in their second game with Sam Darnold. Early down first half pass rate was 36%. It was working though, so like, why not? The problem is that Deontay Foreman played less than half the snaps in a game with a super positive script where they were very run heavy. And the low passing volume led to just 3 hollow targets to DJ Moore, who again is now banged up, 1 target for Terrace Marshall. So even with the offense being better now, how skeptical should we be of the actual pieces within it, given the way they were used on Sunday?
I don't have a whole lot of interest in this offense. I don't expect them to score a lot of points. I don't expect them to be in the red zone often enough for it to matter. And I'm not that worried about it.
They face Pittsburgh next week in a game with a 38.5 point total, so we probably don't have to worry about it that much.
Sounds like an easy under recommendation.
I don't know. It's pretty low. We'll see. I don't know.
I mean, Sam Darnold versus...
Yeah, exactly. Mitch Trubisky. Pick 6 Palooza, baby.
Is Trubisky from North Carolina? Or he
played college at UNC.
Yeah, thank you. I knew that. I was asking if you knew if he was also from the state of North Carolina.
Imagine typing Mitchell Trubisky and not selling a Trubisky. He's from Ohio. Because remember that was a thing in the draft that the Browns didn't take him.
Okay.
So if he ever plays the Browns, he did. That's when he got benched. That was his last game. Never mind. What else did you note on Sunday?
So the Chargers with Keenan and Mike Williams this week, pass rate over expectation of 16.2 points on the positive end. It's about 10 points higher than their season average. I think that they'll stick with just airing it out long term. That makes Herbert more appealing for me. His pass rate's been up for a good portion of the year. I feel pretty good with Herbert. I understand the reservations, but I think that it's just a really good quarterback who can overcome some more intermediate throws than we'd like to see. The Jaguars were really pass heavy in positive script this week. Pass rate over expectation on pass and run plays of 7 percentage points. Full season is basically average. They've been trending more pass heavy. Love to see that for these guys and for Trevor Lawrence.
For our Jags.
Yes, our Jaguars. And then 5 outlier pass rate over expectations on the low end. Carolina this week, minus 9.7%. San Francisco, minus 9.8%. Baltimore, minus 12.2%. Houston, minus 18.1%, which we've talked about in the past of like this team maybe being able to ruin games by being so run heavy. And then Las Vegas, minus 20.8%.
What are they doing? Interesting. Oh, with the San Francisco one too, it's important to note that they were negative 9.8%. That's accounting for game situation.
Yeah.
So they were run heavy even when you account for the score, which makes sense. It's Brock Purdy,
Yeah.
And they've got Christian McCaffrey, so why wouldn't you be? But I think that's worth reiterating when it comes to Kittle and Ayuk when evaluating them. Let's go to the salary scroll. As mentioned, the Saturday slate not posted. So we'll go to just the Sunday main slate over on FanDuel and go position by position breakdown, things that stand out to you. Brandon, at quarterback, what are you seeing there?
Okay, we got Mahomes 91, Hurts 9,000, and then a drop. We only have 4 total quarterbacks on this 10-game main slate with an 8 or 9 in their salary to start.
Justin Fields' salary is down to 79, which is down almost $1,000 from its peak. He's facing Philadelphia, so a very good defensive line, and they're underdogs, but he has scored 20 plus FanDuel points in 6 consecutive games, including 2 40 burgers in that time. Mm-hmm. I think 79 is kind of low, despite how tough of a situation that is.
Yeah, coming off the bye, the only concern I have is that he ran 6 times last game. He's going to be healthier, but I don't know if they're going to want to scale back his rushing from like 12 to 15 to 18 down to like 6.
Yeah,
and keep it there. But even like if you're getting someone at a $7,900 salary with like 6 to 8 carries, as good as he is with his legs, and part of the thing is, and he's got the shoulder, but he said his legs were sore.
So bye helps.
So the time off probably helps that. So I think that he's a really interesting play, and we'll probably end up on him as a love this week.
I also think I'll be on that Jags Cowboys game. Shocker, based on what we were saying before. But Dak Prescott's salary is 75. Trevor Lawrence is 74. I think both those are very, very noteworthy on a slate where there's no Josh Allen. So taking away one of like and there's no Lamar Jackson. So you're taking away 2 of like the cyborgs at the position. Mahomes in a spot where they may get ahead early. Hurts is great at 9,000, but he's 9,000, you can say 1,500. I think Prescott and Lawrence may be focal points for me.
I would agree with that.
I don't see anything else at quarterback here. We do Desmond Ridder making his debut at 65, which is fun, but like I'm not going to use him, but it's fun.
Not in New Orleans.
No. Marcus Mariota's face is right beneath him, and I was like, "Oh, weird." I think they're using Marcus Mariota's face for Desmond Ridder, but I realized I was looking at the wrong spot. Okay, let's go to running back. What do you see there?
I think you just see Marcus Mariota's face everywhere you look.
I do. See, that's the thing is I can be sad about Mariota, but I also think Ridder's fun. So it's kind of like, it's nice that they gave me that. It's like, okay, like, sure, we're taking away your son, but we're giving you like this other fun player instead. So I can be happy still.
We're going to get, so we'll get Josh Jacobs if he's healthy on a mini bye against the Patriots off of a short week, but I don't think I'm going to get there at 92.
But would you get to the other side of that game if Damian Harris sits again with Ramondre Stevenson at 85 against the Raiders?
I very likely would.
Would you? So I prefer Henry though, probably over Stevenson, right?
So Henry at 89 is more appealing than Stevenson.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Okay.
Miles Sanders 78.
Yeah. That's a good spot though. If it's a legitimate role change that he went, which I'm very skeptical of. I don't think it was. But if it were to be, 78 would be a pretty good salary.
Yeah.
I think Travis Etienne again at 7,000 is like standout.
What does it say that we glossed over Alvin Kamara?
Who?
At home against the Falcons at 76.
Who is that? Is he new? Practice squad guy getting called up? You got some inside info here?
So frankly, the 7,000 range itself is really bad.
It's awful.
Again this week. Like it was like somewhat passable this week with like Pollard and ETN, but it's really just ETN there that draws my attention.
So I was talking about Deontay Foreman and how disappointing his role was on Sunday. He did still finish with 21 carries and 1 target, and he's $6,400 against the Steelers. Would that interest you at 64 or no?
So it's one of those like, again, I hate looking at salaries first and talking myself into guys. I want to target guys and be just like, okay, I'm fine with this salary. So I'd be doing the inverse.
Yeah.
With Foreman.
Yeah. Okay.
That's not to say I won't get there, but it's just not a good feeling.
Yeah. We did get a note from One Eye Jack over on YouTube about no Mark Ingram for Alvin Kamara, but Kamara's role is trending down before the Ingram injury. And I think that's why I have concern. Like he was about a 76% snap rate before Ingram got hurt. So it's a fair thing to note. But like it's really not ideal there.
I think there's still some potential, like the ceiling.
Yeah.
But like he's just kind of a guy. And that's also not a game that's easily stackable. So
Right. I agree with that. Okay, I'm gonna switch to receiver because running back's pretty bad down lower. Although Jalen Warren's 51, that's not using that, but interesting. Receiver, what you got there?
Jamar 9,000 feels fair.
So does Devontae at 85. I know like the narrative is that the Patriots will do whatever they can do to stop Devontae Adams, but like it's still 85 for a guy who has high likelihood of 11 targets, 11, 12 targets.
Does he?
Yes.
I mean, he should, but
yeah, he does.
Well, I mean, we could maybe see what New England does against Arizona on Monday night.
Yeah, that's true. It's pretty similar. That's true. Okay, what else do you at receiver?
Amon-Ra 84 is a bit high. Like it's fair, but in that matchup, I think is.
Yeah, it's better to be an inside receiver than an outside one against the Jets. So like I've had a lot of fun with DJ Chark. We've had a good 2-week fling. I'm not gonna be there this week. Unless he were like 52, you know, obviously not that low, but like if they were to not bump him very much, I'd be there. But
Keenan Allen might be a cash game, like head-to-head consideration if I can get there.
Yeah, I think it's better cash game play than tournament play. It is important to go for ceiling in cash games too to make up for mistakes that you made, but I think he's better for that format and fine.
I think he has a reasonable ceiling though.
Yeah, I do too. It's reasonable. I agree. Man, I'm gonna keep using Devontae Smith. He's $7,200. He's had like 8, 8, 9, and 8 targets the past. Dallas Goedert might be back this week, actually.
Yeah.
But still, like, I don't know, man. 72 just feels low for him.
Mike Williams or Devontae Smith?
Target projection, probably similar. I don't know. I like both. Is that okay?
I might end up playing both.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing is 7,000 range at receiver between, well, I guess we count Keenan at 8,000, and then Devontae Smith, Mike Williams, Christian Kirk. That is better than the 7,000 range, other than ETN at running back. That's kind of what I'm seeing.
Any Olave 71?
No, I'm not touching that offense. I know it's Atlanta, but yuck. I don't want that. Scrolling down, the 6,000 range is a wasteland other than Zay Jones 63, DJ Chark is 61. I think that's like appropriate. It's a really tough matchup, but like 61's probably lower than he deserves for the upside he's shown recently.
Yeah,
I'm okay jumping off if he winds up being popular this week, but
Michael Gall's 57 in this range too.
Michael Gall's 57.
Like Gallup, Mac Hollins at 57. They're guys I would consider, but not like I'm gonna plug these guys in and go from there.
Yeah, Elijah Moore is a consideration, kind of similar. It's like yeah, fine, but we never have guys we love in the 5,000 range other than DJ Chark, so that's rare.
So
I will say Julio had a lot of targets this week. He had 8. No, he hasn't had more than 53 yards since week 1. Just kidding. Disregard me. Yeah,
I don't know.
See a whole lot.
I might honestly have to prioritize Dak and well, no, because I mean, if I don't have any value at running back or receiver, it's gonna be hard to prioritize like quarterback and Derrick Henry.
Yeah, true. Okay, tight end.
Kelsey's back. 8,000.
Dallas Goedert comes off IR most likely. He is $6,000. Would you consider Taysom Hill at 62, or are we done with that?
I don't think I'm gonna.
It is against Atlanta, which means their touchdown expectation is higher, which is kind of the key thing for him.
Yeah, I mean, would we get Juwan Johnson still out?
He'll probably be back, if I had to guess.
So like that was part of it, I think, for him.
No, because we were on. I don't want to attach you to this. I was a bit on Taysom Hill before that. It wasn't just that he was playing more tight ends.
It helped.
Yeah. Okay.
I do think.
Okonkwo at 51 once again is interesting. Engram at 55. I think we flagged both those earlier, but I think both of them, seeing the slate breakdown, both those are still in play.
It is only a matter of time before Kelsey drops 30 again. If
How
he
you gonna
does
get there,
not,
though?
if he does,
sorry, cut you off.
If he does not, we have a lot of options to consider.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm gonna have to go there by default and just pray that Kelsey doesn't torch me,
or that Kelsey takes a trip to the Bahamas and I can use Noah Gray at 46 and just do that.
Okay, yeah, that's reasonable.
I'll pay for it, Travis. Hit me up. Would that be worth it? Would that be a worthwhile trade-off? Most likely not. I am bad at finance. Please help me. My family is dying. Yeah, I got nothing else. So we do have some guys in the 5,000 range though that work out pretty well, and I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Notes to future me based on what we saw in week 14, based on what we've seen here in a first look at week 15. What are you telling yourself to make sure you remember when you're filling out lineups on Sunday?
Don't chase bad value.
Yeah. I think for me, it might be take advantage of undersalary games you may want to stack, aka Dallas, Jacksonville, because it'll allow you to get better flexibility in games that are really good with expensive, higher salaried studs.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this too. Like, value plays in games you love, and we've talked about like the data behind it. That's a much more justifiable play. I'm just thinking about I shouldn't have been on James Cook like I was. I should not talk myself into players based on their salaries. That has never worked out for me in the past, basically.
Yeah, for the most part. I will say that on the main slate, Jacksonville, Dallas is the highest projected offensive efficiency for me next week. So go Jags, yes. Go Cowboys. Let's party. We're going to talk about that game potentially more on Thursday. Maybe we'll talk about other games. I don't know. Undecided. I might just make the whole rundown about that game. But we'll talk to you on Thursday about that. That'll be live on the FanDuel YouTube page at 10 a.m. Eastern and up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed after that. So go search for the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
I'm on Twitter at Gdula13, GDULA13.
And I'm on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. Want to thank you all for tuning in. Good luck to you with your single game slates on Monday. We'll talk to you once again Thursday to get you set for week number 15 and the main slate. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire.